even when those anonymous leaflets appeared, giving my home address and my phone number and inviting the public to go and tell me what they think of me, the police refused to provide any protection at all. For many, many years afterwards, I suffered post-traumatic stress disorder, where I had, in particular, night terror attacks. I would have nightmares about some of the actual violent attacks or the near misses. And the near misses were just as bad. The shock and horror of what might have happened was really as bad psychologically and emotionally as the actual physical violence. Now, when I had these night terrors, I don't know if anybody's ever had them, but a night terror is not like a nightmare. It is, you relive an actual or a parallel experience of violent attack. And the effect is that you wake up, and I literally would jump out of the bed, at least 6 inches off the bed. My heart would be pounding and beating so hard that I feared it was going to burst out of my chest. And for any of you who have ever lived through this, it is an absolutely shocking, terrifying experience. In terms of the media, which has been mentioned, we've all just, in recent months, listened to the evidence before the Leveson inquiry. And I have great sympathy for everybody who suffered intrusion and misrepresentation, who gave that evidence. But I've got to say that by comparison to most of those people, really, they had very little to argue about and complain about compared to what I went through. Again, journalists and other commentators have said that the by-election was probably one of the worst examples of tabloid harassment, intrusion, and fabrications. I had tabloid reporters rifling through my rubbish bins in the middle of the night, even where I live there's a rubbish chute, and they actually climbed into the rubbish chute to go through the garbage to try and find incriminating letters or whatever. They put my flat under 24-hour long lens surveillance with telephoto lenses, night and day. They sent, cynically and disgustingly, they sent young boys to my door to try and grab a picture of me with a young boy so they could write some salacious story. They posed as cousins of mine to win the confidence of neighbours and pry information from them. The Sun newspaper published a fabricated story that I had deserted local constituents to attend the Gay Olympics in San Francisco. Having read this story, I thought, oh, that sounds rather interesting. I wish I had gone. The Daily Star wrote a story that I'd been selected by every undemocratic trick in the book. Again, my selection process was totally above board, totally democratic, totally according to the rule book. A photo of me was doctored by the News of the World to make it look like I had plucked eyebrows and was wearing lipstick. It looked like some sort of parody out of Gilbert and Sullivan or some obscure Russian opera. All these complaints were made to the then Press Complaints Commission. They did nothing. They sat on the complaints for months and months and months. They refused to give a ruling. Absolutely shocking. This is supposed to be a watchdog to safeguard the public interest and ensure ethical press standards. Yet for months, they sat on those complaints and did nothing. It was only after the by-election was over that they issued a belated, half-hearted criticism of some sections of the of the press. I mean, how convenient, how obvious. Simon has, and others have alluded to, the conduct of the Liberals during the by-election. And I don't personally blame him. I don't frankly know what he knew or didn't know, and I suspect he didn't know what went on. But undoubtedly, some members of the Liberal Party did pitch for the homophobic vote. As has been mentioned, they published leaflets stating that there was a straight choice between Simon and myself. Male Liberal canvassers did go around knocking on doors, wearing stickers with the words, quote, "I've been kissed by Peter Tatchell." Some of them constantly and repeatedly reminded voters that I was gay and that I supported gay rights. You know, ostensibly saying, oh, we don't mind if he's gay, we don't care if he's gay, a gay rights supporter, but but the intention seemed to me pretty obvious, that they were planting in the minds of homophobic voters that I was a person that they should not vote for. Some years after the by-election, I was informed by an insider in the Liberal Party about the notorious homophobic leaflet, which was titled, "Which Queen Will You Vote For?" It had a picture of myself and Queen Elizabeth. Again, my image was doctored to look effeminate, and it was originally assumed to have been part of a Dirty Tricks campaign by the National Front. But according to a remorseful, apologetic Liberal Party activist, it was actually published by a secret Liberal Party Dirty Tricks unit. Now, I don't know whether that is true. I have no means of saying whether that is a true account or not. But this person, by the remorseful nature of what they said to me and their apology, they had been involved in this, by the way, I am inclined to believe it is true. But again, I think we must leave it as an open, unanswered question. Despite all this, neither myself nor the Labour Party ever retaliated in kind. I knew at the time that Simon was gay. I'd been informed by someone who knew him personally, who told me, look, the Liberals are using these dirty tricks, you should retaliate and expose Simon. The Labour Party decided that we would not do that. We did not and never would exploit Simon's sexuality. As Simon has said, he has since apologised to me, and I have accepted his apology. Indeed, within just a few years after the by-election, I organised the world's first ever AIDS and Human Rights Conference in London and invited Simon to speak, and he spoke very well and eloquently, and I appreciate his contribution to challenging homophobic and AIDS-phobic discrimination against people with HIV and AIDS. Finally, on a positive note, were there any positive outcomes? I think there are perhaps a couple at least. The public revulsion after the by-election, of course there was no public revulsion during the by-election, but after the by-election there was huge public and political revulsion against what happened to me. In particular, the homophobic nature of much of the sniping, the slogans painted and so on. And I think this helped ensure that when Chris Smith, the Labour MP for Islington, came out the following year, very few people dared attack him, and he mostly received a sympathetic public and media response. I think it was that revulsion against what happened to me that helped make that possible for him, and I'm very, very glad and pay tribute to Chris for coming out and for the great work he did for Labour in general and for gay rights during his tenure as MP. The other positive was that after the Bermondsey by-election, mainstream parties dared not use homophobia as a campaign weapon. Again, the revulsion to what happened to me helped ensure that subsequent gay and lesbian candidates did not get the same stick that I got. And again, I'm really pleased that that in some way may have contributed to them not being on the receiving end of such abuse. Likewise, I think the backlash against tabloid smears, intrusions and fabrications resulted in a diminution of such tactics against later parliamentary candidates. Perhaps not by all sections of the media, but certainly by some. I think there was a general drawing back from those kind of smear tactics that I experienced. And again, I'm glad that subsequent candidates benefited from that. I'm often asked, do I have any regrets about not being elected? Well, it's all very easy to think about what if. What happened, happened. But I don't have any regrets. I'm not perfect, things could have been slightly different maybe, I could have done things slightly better. But I am immensely proud of myself and the local Labour Party for sticking with me, for fighting the good fight, for not stooping to the dirty tricks of some of our opponents. We did stand by our principles. We lost, but I think and hope that we lost with honour. Thank you.